Hey everyone, this is Howell, and I'm going to be doing a live tier chart of the Overwatch League teams. This is for the 2019 season, and we're going into the Atlanta Homestead next weekend. So this is before that, which is stage 4, week 5. Stage 3, week 5. Um, so I'm just going to jump right into it, and let's switch over here. And I just thought this would be a fun thing to do, kind of live, just kind of spitball it. I'm gonna run through these pretty quick, so this isn't gonna be super in depth. But let's see. So let's just start off with the two obvious ones. There's actually quite a few obvious ones. These two teams, they have had a little bit of a rough road in stage 3. However, they're really coming into their own again. They're both showing dominance in different ways. Few hiccups, a lot of dominance. They're still number 1 and number 2 for sure. After the Vancouver Titans match against the LA Gladiators this past week, I am sticking them in number 1 because I think that they're really figuring something out with their flexibility here. The way that they worked in Stitch and Summon Su instead of having Janu was pretty fucking cool. And honestly, it was fantastic to see a team like the Titans go away from their diva. I mean, diva's just been this staple in the meta for like ever, except for pre-Apex Season 1 finals, where she got buffed and was insane ever since. But there have been times where she isn't necessary, but she's almost always there. She's like a staple to Overwatch League teams. That's why there's so many players that just main diva. That's all they do. I really thought that was really cool what they did for their flexibility this week, and it showed a lot of interesting strategies that they're gonna pull out, like the triple and quad DPS. So that was pretty crazy, and it shows that they're really working. San Francisco Shock, they're still up there, like obviously number 2, whatever, not a bad thing, but I am curious to see what if they did something similar to what Vancouver did, where they brought in Stitch on the Sombra as a dedicated Sombra player because they couldn't figure out with their main roster. What if the issue with San Francisco Shock is they're playing Sinatra on the Sombra, but then they're losing their really good Zarya, and it's like, well, okay, well, what if you subbed in perhaps Striker, who we know is a phenomenal hit scan player, obviously a tracer specialist, but he picked up Widowmaker so quickly last season that I think he's like one of those players that just has the potential to do that. What if we saw him come in kind of the role that Stitch just did and operate similarly? We could see some pretty cool stuff out of these teams. But I mean, really, each got a loss this stage. It's not a big deal. Overall, they both have bounced back very well. They look phenomenal. So I'm keeping them up there. Now, I'm going to put New York Excelsior next. And I think that New York Excelsior is the gatekeeping team. And they're really not quite up at the dominance of these top 2 teams we have here. But they're also way more consistent than a lot of the other teams below them. And they're styling on people, like hardcore. Like, they styled on London. And granted, London has not looked great this last week. But, like, there's still a group of fantastic players who have been popping off, and it was a super close match. But I mean, it's just a consistency thing, really. So I want to throw in another one here. Hangzhou Spark, they're kind of like right here for me. I'm going to put them here for now. They're the bottom of this S plus tier, right? But they had the same stage score in stage 3 as Vancouver Titans. They had the same match score and the same map differential. The only reason the Vancouver Titans secured the first place seed in the Pacific Division was because of the tiebreaker, which was so close between these teams. And granted, Vancouver seemed to be struggling more than they kind of came out and said, we're in between trying new strategies right now. There's more stuff coming up in the future. So we'll take it with a grain of salt, and this could change. I mean, that's the fun with power rankings. This isn't necessarily reflective of the actual rankings, or it could change very quickly. That's just the fun of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them up here, but they could very easily drop down to either right behind New York or right in front of New York, because New York's had a few issues themselves, and Spark are really just on the up and up. So I think that we're going to keep that there for now. The next couple teams I'm going to place, I'm going to do Seoul first. Seoul Dynasty. I mean, they lost Fissure, but really having Marvel as their rock in every composition, not necessarily the worst thing. A lot of positives, some negatives. I mean, a player like Fissure really dominates the pace of a match. He does a lot of really good things for the team. He changes up the pace in itself, which can be disorienting when you're playing against a team that's switching between main tank styles, like such as Marvel's and Fissure's. Marvel is not in my top 3 tanks in the league right now, but he's pretty good. He's up there. He's up maybe in the top 5, maybe more like top 6, 7, which is like not a bad thing. That's a phenomenal place to be. But we'll see. I think that's where I'm going to put Seoul for now. The next team is going to be LA Gladiators, because we have seen this team really turn themselves around. Packing 10 came in, restructured things. They did a lot of moves, especially the notable one with the Florida Mayhem, where they traded Fate, got 3 of Florida Mayhem's Academy League players, and they really just figured things out. And what I want to look at, actually, I had this pulled up before, is the LA Valiant are playing a roster right now. They're starting a roster that has 1 starting person that had started in the previous stages, and that's not where I wanted to go. But and that was Agilities. So we've got KSF in now. Kuki has been replaced by Custa, who I don't know what was going on with that. I mean, even Moon was like, yo, Custa is amazing at Lucio, and especially in GOATs, but he's like too good. It was this weird thing. Shax on the Sombra has looked good. A lot of people are saying he's like maybe the best Sombra right now because of how this team has turned around. I do not think so, just watching them play. I think that Dante and Ding are for sure better. He might be in the conversation around 3 to 5 though, for sure. I mean, he's really good. He does make a couple weird mistakes, and he gets a few super awkward EMPs at sometimes. But the way he uses translocators and the way he positions himself to get ult charge are very good. And we have, of course, Kareev came in, and he's just destroying people. There's no way to go about it. He's just nutting on everybody. Like, Izayaki looked super good in the beginning of the season, but the way Kareev has come out, especially on his Ana, it's just been phenomenal. Like, the way he's hitting sleep darts is winning his team games and matches. Like, when they won against the Titans, it was like so many clutch sleep darts and bionades from him. And honestly, we saw a very similar performance out of Twilight on Vancouver Titans versus the LA Gladiators on Sunday, where it wasn't as much the sleep darts, but there were a lot of really good sleep darts and bionades that were taking like Decay out of the fight completely. And then Roar would just be on his own and he would die, or something like that. So we've seen this amazing performance from him. Even Space, the really, really good D.Va player, isn't playing right now, which is, again, it alludes to what I said before about D.Va maybe not being meta for once. Of course, she's phenomenal. She's never going to not be phenomenal. It's just a fundamental, it's just the way her character is designed. But it's really crazy to see that she's not being picked all the time. It really is. And then, of course, Fact Fiction, who's been pretty good. It's not, I want to make sure that, like, my opinion is that it's not that Fate is necessarily a worse tank overall. Maybe he is right now. Maybe he is in this meta. It seemed like there was a lot of friction going on with this team in general. So it's hard to really say from the outside looking in what's what. But, I mean, their new roster is working. The system that Packing 10 is incorporating is obviously working phenomenally. So I'm really happy for them. And it's been a really cool turnaround. The one thing that we're lacking, that is also the Houston Outlaws here is lacking, is consistency and the track record, because this has been a very quick upswing. The momentum shift has been drastic. We'll have to see if they can keep it up. We'll have to see how they look in a playoffs, stage playoffs scenario, or next stage even. So we'll see about that stuff. Let's ignore Houston right now for a second because I want to throw Shanghai up here. Shanghai hasn't been quite as diverse as some of these other teams up here, but they have been phenomenal in the Sombra 3-2-1, aka Sombra Goats. So I want to put them up there. I think they're looking really good. The way they styled the other day, especially on Gibraltar, it was amazing. I mean, their match against, oh gosh, was it the Charge? I believe it was the yeah, I think it was the Charge. I mean, yeah, because they looked kind of lost on Hollywood, and Charge looked amazing. Obviously, Nero's been great with the team. Happy and Shu have been phenomenal all season. But every other map, they just looked totally lost. And that was really disorienting going in that second half of that series, going from Hollywood to Gibraltar. But Shanghai really pulled it out, and they showed what they've got. Now, Gladiators is a team that I kind of held off for a second there because I don't know where to put them. Part of me wants to put them here. The other part of me wants to put them here. And, you know, it's hard to say that their loss against the Titans, as decisive as it was very condemning. It's just Titans are phenomenal. They're looking as strong as ever. And they pulled out some weird strats that couldn't have been expected. Gibraltar was pretty rough. It was a map that I really thought Gladiators should have had a better run on. They couldn't even cap point A. It was kind of weird. So I'm going to put them just a little below Seoul right now, just for now. Like, all these teams are pretty interchangeable. And I think that's going to be the end of this tier for me, which is the tier of, if we can just get a little bit more push and shove out of these guys, they're going to be up here with NYXL. For sure. And if NYXL continues to have the struggles they've been having with, like, Sabiolbi looks phenomenal one match, then he looks bad the next, or even game to game, within a series, he'll look much better on some maps. And I'm not quite sure if it's the newness to the Sombra, not sure. His confidence maybe not as strong on some maps. Nene's grabs have been a little weird again lately. We know how good this guy is and how flexible he is, but it's been a little rocky from NYXL as well. Going into stage playoffs, like, we never know what to expect from them. It would be cool if they outperformed our expectations of them just dropping out in playoffs as they do, but we'll see. So this is the tier of any one of these teams in the next couple weeks could be in the S tier, or maybe just flip flopped with NYXL. You know, kind of that gray area there. Now, the next portion is like the middle table teams. I'm going to put Houston Outlaws first here because they're very similar to the LA Valiant. This upswing has been fast. It's been quick. It's been chaotic. We've seen them stumble a little bit more than LA, I would say. Just a bit. Sorry, their win over San Francisco Shock was obviously amazing, and it showed a really cool new side and color to this team that we've been waiting for all season. But I don't think they're quite at the level of the other teams above them yet, so I'm going to put them there. Next, I'm going to do the Chengdu Hunters, who I think are, in a way, the scariest team in the league. They have this flexibility and this craziness and this kind of charisma that is quite honestly terrifying. And we've seen teams struggle to adapt to them. They continue to change their strategies. They're running more regular goats and Sombra goats now than ever before, it seems. Even though goats is kind of falling off, we see Amon, I don't know how to say his name, I'm sorry, on the Reinhardt more. We see the really cool Ilios Ruins strategy where they just all go on top of the ruins once they take the point, and it's just so oppressive. And this team has had a lot of really close matches. These players are phenomenal, and I really think we could see them move up here in the future. We could see a crazy playoff run from them, either in one of the stage playoffs or in the overall season playoffs. I mean, it's just hard to say. So they're a really solid team. This is going to be a very tall tier list because I do think there are a lot of levels in the league right now. So maybe it looks like right now they're in the second worst tier, but that's not going to be true. And I'm actually going to add a tier down here just for now. What do I want this to be? We'll do a green. Actually, no. This was, what was this? I don't know, dude. Let's see this one, green. It makes sense color wheel wise. So the next is the biggest tier for me. Let me just throw these teams. Philly, their positive match score right now, but they're looking at a negative map differential, which means they're getting crushed when they lose and they're having close wins when they win. I'm not sold. I think obviously we see Carpe and EQO and DPS and they look phenomenal, but this team just is such a stale GOATS team. They just really don't have it, as we've seen from a lot of teams in the league. They're middling. It's not a bad spot. They have the potential to be here. They even have the potential to be here, I honestly believe. But for now, just judging on what we're seeing, they're here. And like I said, power rankings are fun because they can easily change week to week, day to day. They're fun to play around with. It's not a serious thing. It's not based on, well, this team is this ranking in the official rankings. It's not about that. I'm just kind of having fun with it. So let's keep going here. Guangzhou Charge, London, Rain belong here. Fuel, Paris belong here. So I just threw these in here, but now let's order them. This is hard. I mean, Paris and Atlanta are probably really similar. I think I'm going to put London here right after Philly because London, we've seen they had a fantastic series with New York Excelsior, one of the best we've seen in the regular season. I think the best games this year have come out of the stage playoffs. But that regular season game that went the distance was phenomenal. And obviously these players have played against each other since forever. I mean, some of them New York Excelsior did not participate in the Apex Season 4 championship that London formerly GC Busan, ended up winning. But these players have played on various teams in various leagues and various tournaments against each other for a long time now, and the storylines are really cool. Some of even the younger players ended up playing in contenders the earlier seasons of 2018 before they were 18, and before they made it onto like New York, such as Nene and Flower was there, of course. So I think again, it's the same story. I won't spend too much time on it. It's like they could be here. They could be here with a nuts playoff run. They always have that playoff run in them. It's just a matter of who's going to show up today. So then Paris, who's been struggling. Atlanta, they've been struggling. Growing pains is how I'd say it. Struggling to adapt, struggling to just get fresh strategies. Being fresh and catching people off guard in the way that Vancouver did to the LA Gladiators this past week. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy. And maybe you try something in scrims and it works phenomenally, but then it doesn't quite work on stage. And I think that was one thing that happened to Fuel in that map for Gibraltar this past week, where we saw that strategy where they were trying to build like a little fortress stronghold on the car wash of Point A Gibraltar. And once that failed, it was kind of like, where do we go from here? They had AKM in at that point. Taimu was looking better on that day. And it was just kind of like, maybe this is a strat that it's like, you're scrimming and you're just like holding on Point A all the time. And then in the real game, they got beat. And then it was like, oh, crap, like, what do we do now? Now we don't have a set strategy for this. And I don't know how I feel about it. Like, the Maywalls were really good, but there were a few moments where things were a little bit off. I wasn't sure. Maybe they should have held on the Mega side of the car wash. But then there's also, it's a bigger opening, so maybe it's harder to cover with the Maywalls and with the shields and stuff. It's hard to say for sure, but I mean, Dallas just another team that it's like, they started off high. They're slumping a little bit, but they're not a bad team. And that leads us to Guangzhou Charge. And I'll even put Boston up here as the last one. Teams we've seen a lot of really good things from, good stats from a lot of the individual players. like I said before, the Charge have so many promising players. Nero is gelling amazing. They have Happy. Shu has looked great all season. It's definitely more of a tank problem and maybe just like an overall coaching problem with the Charge. I do think they have a lot of potential. I don't know if they'll reach that potential by the end of the season, but we'll see. And it's the same with Boston, although I think their potential is a little lower. I don't think any single player is bad on this team. It's just not impressive in a lot of ways, and we've seen the limits of fusions outside of Reinhardt. Um, so then I've got this. This is the almighty Papega tier. I mean, it speaks for itself. Toronto's going through a lot of changes. So is Florida. I mean, Neko, phenomenal player. Mangachu, the new pickups, Logics, fantastic stuff, but it's going to take time. And with Florida, they picked up a bunch of the old members of what was WGS Armament and was this most recent season of contenders in 2019, O2 Blast. So WGS Armament, last season 3 contenders 2018, beat GC Busan in the playoffs. GC Busan Wave, I should say, which was a phenomenal upset, but it really displayed these characters. I actually did an analytical piece on how they were running goats in Anubis A and how they were positioning themselves, and they really had a lot to show. And Gargoyle, phenomenal diva and other tank player. They got a couple other players like DPI and Rain, who I don't know a ton about, but some other looking solid pickups. Unfortunately, they couldn't get Pelican with them from the WGS move, but they did get Karayan. Pelican is 16, so he won't be eligible until at least 2 years from now. Maybe the previous season, because I don't know when his birthday is, so we'll see. But probably 2 years from now. But Karayan, a really good main tank. If anything, him and Fate can try them both in scrims. They can see what the team synergy is looking like, and they can push each other to be better tanks at the very least. And then I'm gonna put Justice in last place because they made some middle moves, middle season moves. They weren't powerful. I like the Arc pickup, the Sleepy pickup. I'm like, he's good. There are probably better flex supports and contenders. Obviously they have a tank issue with Janus. I love him as a history of Janus, but he's just not performing anymore. And I have to let go of that bias that I have of him, of loving him as a longtime player on LW Blue, because he's just not performing anymore. And you just can't hold on to that forever. At some point, there is a breaking point where you have to say he is last in the league in like every stat. So Sansam, it's like the whole team is just eh. Corey's had some really bright spots. It's not like the players are bad. There are probably some contenders players right now that are better than them. I mean, for sure there are. Some of them are younger, so they can't join OWL. I think the team ran into a lot of issues with underestimating what kind of investment they would need on the management side. Don't know for sure. Not part of it. I do think they have a good coaching staff. I don't disbelieve in the church of Wizard Young. Avala has nothing but good praise from previous teammates. I should say players that she's coached. Very smart coach overall. So we'll see. But this is kind of where I'm gonna leave it. Just kind of doing a quick spitball live power ranking here, just to kind of get something out there. I thought it'd be a fun idea going into this homestand weekend. We have some really cool matches coming up. I'll real quick take a second to look at it, just to cap this off, and then we'll get out of here. I mean, this is kind of a wash, but I am very curious to see how the new Florida Mayhem players gel. Probably looking at more stage 4. I do think they might be able to break out of the bottom echelon eventually. Maybe not in the 2019 season, but we'll see. I do think that Bare Hands has done his scouting well, and that he got a lot of really promising players. I truly believe that. Some of these matches, it's like might be okay because they're both close in the rankings. I am really curious to see this one again. I am stoked to see this rematch. I think this will be a really good match. Definitely the best match of the day, without a doubt. Um, Honestly, Philly Shanghai could be big too, because we're looking at Shanghai as really rough position here. Obviously, last of the day on Saturday, first of the day on Sunday. That's a really quick turnaround. Very unfortunate scheduling, but that's kind of the nature of these homestand weekends. It's stuff that the league has said they're trying to avoid this season because they had a lot of it last season. But in the nature of the homestand weekend, only these teams are going. Only these 8 teams. So it's just kind of the nature of the beast, I suppose. But these teams, I mean, if Philly comes through, this is an instance where it's like, okay, Philly, like, get on up here, right? If not, let's put them back. If not, Shanghai just proves that they belong to be where they are. I don't think Shanghai moves up here. Maybe if it's like a super convincing 4-0, I would say maybe they'd move up. Maybe not necessarily here, but maybe like, oh, let's like reshuffle this depending on how things go. But the other problem is a lot of these top teams are not competing at this homestand, so it's kind of like at a stalemate now for a lot of these teams until the stage playoffs and then going into stage 4. However, let's see. Let's look at some of these. This might be. I think this would be a really good match. I think Guangzhou should win here. This might be a potentially good match if this Florida team is starting to gel more. I mean, the Atlanta team obviously has a lot of issues. Fantastic players, but they're having issues with something. We'll see how these teams. I would say this is my match of the day, interesting wise, of day 2 of Sunday. Although this one might mean more. I think that this one means more for power rankings. This one is more interesting to me. These not very interesting to me. I think they'll both kind of be washes. We'll see. This is my pick for day 1. So going into the weekend, that's what we'll be seeing, and it probably won't be that exciting because of just how things turned out with these teams that are playing in it. But we have stage playoffs coming up, which will be super exciting. So I'm looking forward to that. And let's just close out on this screen. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope it made sense. I know I spoke very quickly a lot of times. Maybe slow down the video if you have to, but whatever. I wanted this to be quick and dirty. So I'll leave it on that. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. Follow on Twitter. Like it, don't like it. Let me know. And yeah, that'll be it. Thanks.